Bap. What's up, legends, and welcome to another... Well, I definitely stole this from somebody. Welcome to an unmatched non-strategy guide. For this time, it's going to be for Ghost Rider. Now, allow me to give a special thanks to Baked Bartholomew Goods for allowing me to take heavy inspiration from his videos. Please don't sue me. And another special thanks to Zero Skater 12 for his sweet tier list. And another special thanks to everybody else who I'm forgetting. Who am I? I'm a professional bronze expert with an astonishing 0-4 record in UM League Season 3. I am also the person that stole Zero Skater 12's Invisible Man King title by defeating Daredevil with Invisible Man. Now, if that doesn't qualify me as somebody who's to give a guide on Ghost Rider, I don't know who is. Let's open up the gates with the tier list. Now, if you watch Zero Skater's most recent tier list, he put Ghost Rider in the high tier. Do I agree with this? Well, maybe not, because he got an official nerf or clarification, however you want to view it. Basically, how the too long didn't read of all this text is whenever you use Ghost Rider's special ability, his movement is set to 4 movement. You can boost it, but it doesn't increase the value. You can boost it with a 3 and it's still going to be a 4 movement, so not really a good idea to boost your movement. It kind of changes his tier list placement a little bit. I don't think it changes it too much, but it does affect him quite a bit. His ability. Basically an innate stallion charge if you're familiar with Yananga. It allows Ghost Rider to maintain pressure while dealing damage for essentially free. And while you can spend Hellfire on the majority of his card effects, which can be good, don't forget about his special ability because it is among the best in the game. The best case scenario of this is dealing with those pesky 1 HP minions. Robin Hood, get out of here. Sun Wukong, actively dealt with. You don't have to worry about them when you're playing as Ghost Rider. It's still good at chipping away at larger HP pools. For example, King Arthur, he's got that beefy 18 hit points. T-Rex got 27 if you believe the number. Still good at chipping away, but the real meat and potatoes is getting rid of those 1 HP minions and dealing consistent, reliable, unblockable damage. If you got the Hellfire to spend, there's almost no reason to not to do this ability so long as you get value out of it. And in addition, it also makes Ghost Rider virtually unpinnable. As long as you have Hellfire, you virtually cannot be pinned. Now here's 2 examples of what a pin looks like. I'm not sure if my mouse is showing up on screen. I'm also new to this whole screen capture gig. Allow me to take a drink of water and not die this time. Let's see. So if you have 2 maneuvers and you wish to get maximum value out of your 2 Hellfire boosts, you spend your Hellfire, go 1, 2, 3, 4, and you end up there. And then you spend your second one going 1, 2, 3. I mean, you could go here. I don't suggest it because you're a Medusa. You can go here if you want. You can go here. It's flexible. If you only have 1 maneuver, you can go something like 1, 2, 3, 4, end up here. Now, why these spaces specifically? Well, I want to do as much damage as I can against as many people as I can using, well, as little as I can. So if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 using 2 maneuvers, I spend 2 Hellfire and I do a total of 4 damage altogether. That's pretty good value because these pesky 1 HP minions, you want them out of the game. You don't even want to deal with them. Don't even bother attack them. There's no point on attacking the 1 HP minions when you can just run them over. Now, you may be in a bad situation, or you may not have enough hellfire. I don't know what the situation is, but let's say you're over here on the right. You go 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, why do you want to end there? Well, you don't want to be adjacent to either a melee or a ranged fighter. So if you're over here, you're not only are you outside of Medusa's zone, so she can't hit you with a ping ability at the start of her turn. She also can't attack you without maneuvering, and that's the key here. You want to set the pace of the match. You want them to come to you whenever it is possible. So always be outside of their attack range if you can do anything about it. Now, I didn't draw this on here, but let's say if you can view my mouse on the right side, if you have only Medusa and you want to use your maneuver special ability, get the hell out of Dodge. You can't really get too far away because she is ranged, but if you're a melee character, you can go like, you can run into them, go 1, 2, 3, 4. And I suppose they still have to maneuver to get you, but at the end of the day, you want them to maneuver into you when they attack you. That's the key. That's what you want to try to do. General stats. 17 hit points is not bad for a solo fighter. However, most solo fighters have healing to buffer this. Ghost Rider does not. He's melee, but he doesn't really care too much, because if you're behind a wall of minions, he can just, well, run them over. Really does not care. He has decent attacks, but that's not really where he shines. He has plenty of blocks, up to 18 blocks. And due to his special ability, he can keep up in terms of tempo and pressure. He will very likely, never be low on cards, indirectly thanks to his ability. And if possible, make it so that the enemy can't easily attack you. Make them maneuver to you. And the unfortunate side effect of Ghost Rider is he is at least partially responsible for making Bryden leave Unmatched. Please come back. Now let's have a moment of silence for Bryden. Stats. More stats. Everyone loves stats. He only has 8 attack-only cards, which is totally fine. He doesn't need to attack all the time in order to win. He has up to 18 block cards. Very likely he will have a block card in hand, so unless you're facing somebody who has a lot of action gain, like Bruce Lee, maybe even T-Rex, who knows? You'll probably do just fine on the blocking department. 4 schemes. While this doesn't really help you in the exhaustion endgame, your schemes generate your hellfire, which is fine, I guess. Matchups. Now, I'm not the most seasoned Ghost Rider person, because it's really hard to find somebody that actually really wants to verse Ghost Rider. I wonder why. But he is amazing against anyone that relies on 1 HP minions to maintain map pressure. That includes Sun Wukong, Robin Hood, Medusa, anybody who wants to hide behind a wall of meat shields is a great matchup. He can have high value blocks for big damage characters. For example, Arthur, Bigfoot. I put Dracula here for some reason. Not sure if I necessarily agree with that because he's a little different. But anyway, he has high value blocks for big damage characters. He's not too great against direct damage. For example, Sherlock. Wow. Who would have surprised that he would not be too great against Sherlock? Little Red. Little Red has a lot of healing. She's got a lot of direct damage. Can pierce through that big old defense. Little Red has a rather favorable matchup to Ghost Rider. He does have a little trouble with larger hit points and with a lot of healing. So T-Rex, big HP, lots of aggression. Moon Knight's got lots of healing in addition to Khonshu, which just goes, no, you're not ruining me this turn. It is of my firm belief that Ghost Rider doesn't have any bad matchups for now, He probably has neutral matchups at best, excluding Sherlock, but that could change with the other fighters that are coming out when they do. Spirit of Vengeance, starting off with a strong B tier card. After combat, you may spend 1 Hellfire to draw 2 cards. Now, 5 value attack is a solid attack on its own. You generally don't need to draw cards, but the option is there if needed. In case you needed to get back up on, keep up your tempo, keep up your aggression, it's not a bad trade. Now, obviously, you don't want to do this with an already full hand, and Hellfire is usually spent elsewhere, and this card does not help you if exhaustion is on the table. Definitely does not help in that fact, but the fact that you have 3 of these cards, and it's actually perfectly fine if it gets fainted, because you're just going to be dealing 3 damage, and Ghost Rider is all about that chip. Chip, chip, chip. No big attacks, kind of, but if you get a damage here and there, Ghost Rider's all for it. I Brought the Devil With Me is a C tier card. 3 value, attack only. After combat, you may spend 2 Hellfire to gain an action. Oh boy. Don't expect to do much with a 3 value attack. In addition, 2 Hellfire for 1 action. Well, you have some options. Like, for example, if the opponent can't block, or if they have no good defenses left, and you'd know that by either getting to discard or you're at the end of the game, then sure, you can spend 2 Hellfire to do an extra action, attack them again. They're probably going to eat it in that case. But this does not help with the exhaustion endgame if that's still on the table. If you want to use it to run away, okay, fine. You could do that. It's a little pricey though. In addition, I guess you could theoretically spend the 2 Hellfire and then use your action gain to run them over and then run away. Is that a good idea? That costs 3 Hellfire to do it. I don't think it's a good idea. It's totally okay if it gets fainted. I'd say if it got fainted, yeah, made him waste it and you dealt the damage. That's a good trade in my books. Blaze of Glory. It's an A tier card. 2 damage doesn't really matter. It's the effect that you use this card for. Nobody plays a 2 damage card, mostly, and goes like, ah yes, I'm going to deal damage out of this card. Obvious exceptions included, but it's not a good idea to spend the Hellfire. After combat, spend any amount of Hellfire, deal that much damage to each fighter in Ghost Rider's zone, including Ghost Rider. It's not a good idea to spend Hellfire if it doesn't win you the match, because not only do you consume the Hellfire, you deal damage to yourself, and you deal damage to your opponent. If you don't win, you're in a very bad spot. However, it doesn't matter if you die if your opponents die at the same time, because you win because you are the active player. Now, in a 1v1 match, it's easy. If your opponent's hero dies at the same time Ghost Rider dies, you win. It gets a little bit more complicated in a free-for-all or a team-based match, but that's why I said it doesn't matter if you die if your opponents die at the same time. Either way, it sucks if it gets fainted, because it's just straight up 0 value. It also requires high Hellfire, so it's a little bit predictable, because you're probably going to attack it with at least 3 Hellfire, depending on how much health they have. In addition to his ability, this makes being low hit points versus Ghost Rider scary as hell. Pun intended, I suppose. Because he does guaranteed damage if he runs you over. In addition, he can do practically guaranteed damage if this card is not cancelled. If you're at 5 hit points or below versus Ghost Rider, you better close up the match pretty quick, because this card alone will end it. Alright, so you spent all your Hellfire. Now what? Well, I'm glad you asked, because we're moving on to schemes. Chains of Hellfire. This is an S tier card. This card is what makes Ghost Rider tick. Now, it doesn't take a bronze genius to tell you it's best to use it at 0. because no matter what your Hellfire is, you just set it to 5. You're at 0, set it to 5. You're at 4, set it to 5. If you're at 5, well, you set it to 5. Obviously, use it at 0, but you can use it at 1 to 2 Hellfire if pressured. Be wary of effects or opponents that allow you to or make you randomly discard, because this will make you very sad if this card gets randomly discarded. Hence the very unhappy smiley face on the bottom there. If you suspect your opponent is trying to make you randomly discard a card, it might be worth using this one a little bit earlier than you expect. It's all matchup dependent. But this is a great card. It's a backbone of Ghost Rider. Hell Rides With Me. A tier, S tier with items. Move Ghost Rider and up to 1 adjacent fighter up to 4 spaces each. Gain 2 Hellfire. Gain 1 action. Now, moving up the 4 spaces, that's nice. Moving yourself and an adjacent baddie, that's nice. You gain an action, that's pretty good. But you gain Hellfire, nice. This is one of the few guaranteed ways of gaining a Hellfire. With the previous one, which was the Chains of Hellfire, you can get up to 14 guaranteed Hellfire. So that'll probably suffice you for the whole match, but there's other ways of getting Hellfire that are a little bit more risky and not so guaranteed, but you want to keep these two to get the maximum benefits that you can. Now, this effect is an A tier on its own, but it really shines if you have a map with items, because you get to maneuver you and your enemy in such a way that you get the benefit from the item and your opponent is in a very bad spot. In my opinion, it's probably the best case scenario to take the +2 attack item if it is possible. You move yourself onto it, then you move your opponent adjacent to it, and then you smack him with that 5 damage. Was it Spirit of Vengeance? Oh, I can't remember. Come on, this thing's so slow. Yeah, Spirit of Vengeance. So if they pretty much have to feint it, because that's going to be a 7 attack. If they block with a 3, they're eating 4. If they block with a 4, they're eating 3. In addition, you get to potentially, use your card effect in order to draw more cards if you want more pressure. But even if it gets feinted, which it's probably going to get feinted if they have the possibility, they're taking 3 damage. It's a very good situation that you want to be in. It's also decent for forcing your opponent away to get breathing room, because this card, while you would expect, because it says Hell Rides With Me, you'd expect that you have to be, adjacent all of these spaces. But it doesn't specify that they have to end adjacent to each other. So you can move Ghost Rider to like the right side of the map, and you can move your opponent, I don't know, King Arthur, to the other side of the map. So you guys are like 8 spaces away. I'm sure my math is wrong, but you guys are the entirety of the map away. And you still gain Hailfire. You gain an action that you can do whatever with. Draw another card. Who cares? That doesn't really make too much sense to me, thematically, but I'm guessing most of the cases you want to drag your opponent to something or drag it to your teammate in 2v2. Any case, this card pretty much does it all. Great card. I'm almost wanting to put it in S tier just due to how versatile it is. The next card is Stoke the Flames, C tier. Allow me to drink some water. Let's see. After combat, if you lost the combat, gain Hellfire equal to the combat damage you took. Let's get this out of the way. A 2 block defense is bad. It's better than blocking with a 1, but not by much. The consolation prize that you get is it does allow you to gain Hellfire, so that's nice. If you have to or want to use this to block, make sure you are low on Hellfire. I'd say about 0 to 2 to maximize the value. That way if they throw like a 5 value service pistol at you, you at least get 3 Hellfire, I guess. This card's okay. It's like a consolation prize. You're not very happy to take the damage, but at least you get Hellfire out of it. So it's something. You do have better blocks though. Deal with the Devil. Now, during combat, there's a 2 value. During combat, you may spend any amount of Hellfire. Increase the value of this card by that amount. I'm torn, but I'm going to put it on a C tier. Because once again, base 2 block is bad. If you go all in, it's a 7 block, which is really good. But then you're out of Hellfire, which is bad. I'd say use Hellfire sparingly. It's okay to take a little damage here and there. Because in my opinion, it's better to kill your opponent than to, well, have your opponent kill you first. And it's better to deal damage to your opponent than to take damage. I don't know. That's why I call this one situational, because you gotta read the room here. However, what I can say with certainty that spending to negate winning effects situationally is really good. For example, Snicker Snack. You better spend it to avoid that, because that's an if they won check. For Aid the Chosen One, if you won the combat, draw 2 cards. I mean, not only are you blocking 2 damage, you also negate Arthur from drawing 2 cards, which I'd probably say is a good idea. Curse of a Soul, if you lost the combat, or I guess if Angel lost the combat, he recovers a health. I guess he draws a card too, but honestly, you're versing Angel. Like, you probably already won. However, it's effects like Fatal Struggle that are really good, because they provide you the option, depending on how the game is at that current moment. Let's say you are actually going towards the exhaustion endgame. That means you let him win. You only boost it by 1. You lose combat. It sucks. You take a damage, but Beowulf has to draw 2 cards, which is really good in the end game situation. However, if it's not, you're slightly below tempo, or you just don't want him to get more cards, you boost it up by 2, and it allows you to draw 2 cards. Now, if the ability said you get to, you may spend 2 Hellfire to take no damage and draw 2 cards, whew, oh baby, this card just gets so much better. However, I'm really torn. Like, what if you get hit by an Excalibur? Are you really going to spend 4 Hellfire just to take no damage? To make me feel better about that, I like to think of it as reverse healing. So you spend the card not to take damage, but to actually heal the damage. It's weird reverse psychology, but it makes me feel better that I'm using it to effectively heal than to, negate the damage. It's a weird mental thing that I have to go through. It's probably not a bad card. I'm doing a little dirty by putting it in C tier. It probably belongs a little bit higher. I'd probably put it in B tier. But it's so tough. It's so tough spending Hellfire to just increase it by 1, especially when another card exists. I finally escaped hell. I'm definitively placing this in the D tier. 3 value versatile. After combat, you may spend 1 Hellfire to move Ghost Rider up to 2 spaces. So 3 value on an attack, it's not that good. It's pretty okay on a defense, but the ability, it's kind of lame. It's like baby's first skirmish, but it costs Hellfire to do it. And you can only really move Ghost Rider, not the opponent. It can be used to escape adjacency on defense. It might be the best way of doing this, I guess. But you can also use it to run away if it's your second attack. It's not the best way to spend Hellfire, in my opinion, but you know what? It's one of those cards where it's perfectly fine if it gets fainted when you attack with it. This card just disappoints me. This just disappoints me. But you can't have great cards for all your cards. You have to have some stinkers, and this is definitely the stinker of the deck. Throw it out on offense. Keep it for a block. Doesn't matter what you do with this. This is definitely your junker card. The Wicked Will Burn, B tier. Now it's a 3 value. After combat, if Ghost Rider started this turn on a different space, gain 2 Hellfire. It looks very similar to the previous card, but it's better. Don't expect to get damage out if it's on attack. It's a decent defensive option in terms of block power. 3 defense, it's pretty good. Most of the time it's going to block all, if not most, of the damage coming in. It's best used as a poke after moving to get that sweet Hellfire. It's a little bit telegraphed. If it gets fainted, it's kind of a bummer, but if you get the Hellfire, it's great. It's like a a sweet little Christmas bonus. If you get it, great. If you don't, well, were you really expecting it to begin with? Don't expect to get Hellfire if you're defending it. Like maybe you got attacked with the swap cheat. Great, use it. Maybe you got skirmished and you're getting attacked again. Okay, fine, you can get your Hellfire. So much easier to get the Hellfire bonus on attack than it is defense. Not impossible, but it's possible. It's a great way to top up Hellfire if you use it while you have 3. As I said, it's gravy if you get it. It's not bad if you don't. All around, it's an okay card. Nothing wrong with it. Control the Demon is A tier. You can use it to attack, but I wouldn't. It's best used as a defense with around 4 to 5 Hellfire. Sorry, I should say it's a 0 value card. During combat, the card's value is +1 for each Hellfire you have. It can be used with 3 Hellfire if in a pinch and have nothing else. But for the love of Nicolas Cage, do not use it with less than 3. Your opponent can try to offensively feint, but it's usually a good trade for you because more likely than not, you're going to be defending with something else. I mean, if you have 5 Hellfire, there's a very good chance you'll play this, but at the end of the day, that just means they have a feint that they can't defend with, which is really good for you. However, if you use it to attack and you get feinted, it is a sad day, because it just becomes into a fat, stinking 0. Ooh, gotta take a nice swig of water for this one. Penance Stare, S tier. 3 value versatile. During combat, add the boost value of the opposing fighter's card to this card's value. You may spend 2 Hellfire to do it a second time. I gotta give this award of the spookiest card in the game so far. Look at that, it's so spooky. I don't even know what's going on, but it's spooky. The effect is insane. Not many cards, when used offensively, can deal with this without ignoring value. So obviously, like a highway robbery or the little red card, I think it's called What Big Eyes You Have, just straight up ignore this card and that's a sad day for you. However, most characters just can't get around this. Now I think the average boost value is a 2. I mean, in addition, I swear the stronger the card, the stronger the boost. However, let's say it's even an average boost value is 2. That means that this card is a 5 defense. 5 defense? Man, you love to see 5 defense. However, you can get it stronger by spending 2 Hellfire to do it a second time if you need. Let's take an example of an Excalibur. Excalibur, because it has a boost value of 3, means that your Penance Stare is a 6. And if they boosted it with a 3, like a Noble Sacrifice, you can just spend 2 Hellfire to make that a disgusting 9. Oh my god, who else can raw block I guess, who can straight up block number to number with an Excalibur? I'm waiting. I mean, Bewilderment doesn't count. That's cheating. Golden Chainmail, nope, that doesn't count. Nope, that's cheating. Penance Stare, unless I'm missing something obviously, is the only one that can deal with that. Now, you can use it offensively, but I honestly think that it's better to be used defensively. Now, my math sucks here, but let's say you go with against a with haste. This card is going to be a raw 6, and you can boost it up to another 9 value. A 9 into a 4, you're going to be dealing 5 damage. Now, spending 2 Hellfire to do 5 damage, like uncontested, anybody would do that. I would do that. Now, if I would do that, I'm pretty sure that anybody else would do that in a heartbeat. However, with that being said, you have the potential of doing an insane amount of damage. Now, against characters that have low boost values. Now, King Arthur, I picked the greatest example of Excalibur. He has less than, average boost values. And a character like Sinbad, he practically has no boost values. So it is a little bit matchup dependent. T-Rex, for example, has higher than average. Like, he has a lot of boost value 4s, so this card could potentially be an 11 against the T-Rex. Now, the T-Rex ain't going to be too happy about that. And in addition, characters that can't faint, like Sun Wukong, Yananga, T-Rex, even Invisible Man to a degree, they're going to have a real rough time dealing with this when you use it offensively. That being said, it's really sad if you use it offensively and it gets fainted. However, it's really good if fainted while used defensively, except for in surprise attack. But, Invisible Man needs all the help he can get. I think that's more or less the gist of Penance there. Just a great card. S tier. I'd even put it as an S plus tier, but deserves strongly in the S tier. Then we move on to his last card, Faint. I mean, it's a common card. There's only 2 copies of this, just like Bloody Mary, which is kind of sad. If you wanted to know more about the in-depth details on how to use feints, whether you should use them defensively, which is the answer is yes, or if you should use them offensively, Baked Goods has a good video on how to use the feint card. And I think that's pretty much it. There's the tier list of what I basically made all the cards. Now, some of them would probably change. Like, I might change Deal with the Devil up to a B tier, for example, but I think it's more or less good as it is. Control the Demon could be up a bit higher. Now, keep in mind they're not organized in their rows. They're all, A tier, for example. But that's more or less it. Now, at the end of the day, how do you play Ghost Rider? Well, essentially, you play him like a degenerate. As I might have alluded to, I can't quite remember, I'm doing this live. You want to use your ability as much as you can. However, that does not mean that you want to use your ability just for your ability and do not attack. Can you win like that? Oh, you definitely can. There's no ifs, ands, or maybes about that. You can definitely win like that. However, I believe that it is best to do a hybrid strategy where you use your maneuver when it makes sense to give yourself the tempo to do damage, to deal with the minions, to get your hand size up. But once you have your hand size up and then you attack once or twice, get your cards down to like 5 or 4 cards, and then you do your maneuvering back up to 7 cards. You want to keep a full hand against most players. I'm not sure if there's any characters that care about a high hand count, but you want to keep your hand count high so you have options to block with. And to do that, your innate ability allows you to do damage, get cards, and makes the opponent move to you. So you have a permanent advantage if you play this way. It's super degenerate. It makes people just not want to play against Ghost Rider. It was a bit toned down with the nerf that, or I guess clarification as they want to say it, from Restoration Games. It has made their Ghost Rider just a little bit easier to fight against. He's still strong. He's still very strong, but it's not as terrible as it used to be. Anyway, I believe that is the end of the video. I'm sure I'm forgetting something. If you want to leave any comments or anything that I might have missed, feel free to send it my way. Thank you. Bye.